Welcome! So today we're jumping into a theological text that makes a pretty wild claim. It says that the master plan for redeeming the entire universe, well, it's actually hidden in the story of Joseph. You know, the guy with the famous coat. So the text we're looking at today kicks off with this huge question. How exactly does the second person of the Trinity, God the Son, come to inherit all of space-time? It's a massive concept, right? And the answer, this text argues, isn't in some obscure philosophical treatise. Nope. It's laid out step by step as an allegory right there in the Old Testament.
And here's the big reveal, the key to the whole thing. The source says that Joseph's story, you know, Jacob's favorite son, the dreamer, it's not just a compelling piece of history. It's actually a super detailed blueprint, a roadmap, if you will, for how all of creation is finally redeemed and inherited.
Okay, so let's get into part one, the descent into the pit. This whole allegory, it doesn't start with triumph. No, it kicks off with betrayal, with humiliation. The text frames this whole first part as this absolutely necessary, symbolic fall from grace.
So it starts with his brothers, right? They strip him of his coat and toss him into this empty pit, a cistern with no water in it. Now, the text we're looking at draws a really direct line here. It says that waterless pit, that's a symbol for Hades. And Joseph, trapped down there, is a stand-in for the Son of God becoming Adam, basically entering into that same state of being trapped, of being confined.
And the fall isn't over yet. The descent gets deeper when Joseph is sold into slavery for a handful of silver coins. According to this interpretation, this moment is a direct parallel to the Son of God willingly emptying himself, taking on the form of a servant. It's this core idea you see in the theology of the incarnation.
And this is rock bottom. Joseph, who is completely innocent, gets falsely accused and is thrown into Pharaoh's prison. He's treated like a common criminal. And the parallel is crystal clear, right? The text argues this is just like the sinless son taking on the appearance of a sinner and taking the hit for crimes he absolutely did not commit.
All right, that leads us right into section 2, the prophecy in prison. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. What happens inside those prison walls is, according to our source, the absolute theological core of this entire allegory. It's where the mechanics of salvation itself are sort of acted out in advance. So, the story narrows its focus to two very specific guys who are in prison with Joseph, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and his chief baker. They both have these troubling dreams, and Joseph steps in to interpret them. And he tells them, point blank, that their fates will be sealed in exactly 3 days. Okay, so this is where the symbolism gets super specific. The text says these two guys aren't just characters. They represent something much bigger. The cupbearer, you know, the one who serves wine, he symbolizes Jesus' blood, the thing that brings atonement. And the baker, who makes bread, he symbolizes Jesus' body, which is marked for execution. So their individual fates become this profound allegory for the crucifixion. And it all comes down to that 3-day timeline. Just like Joseph said, on the 3rd day, the cupbearer is restored to his old job. This, the text says, is a symbol for the atoning power of Jesus' blood making its way into the heavenly sanctuary. But at the very same time, the baker is executed, hung on a tree. And that symbolizes the crucifixion of Jesus' actual physical body. Now, the way this source defines atonement is, well, it's pretty radical. We're not just talking about wiping the slate clean for past sins. No, it's way bigger than that. It's about a total cosmic level purification of space-time itself. The ultimate goal here is to redeem free will, to fix it at the source code level, so that another rebellion against God becomes literally impossible for anyone ever again.
So after that prophecy plays out, the whole story just completely flips on its head. This leads us to part 3, from prisoner to ruler. The allegory shifts gears from all that suffering and descent, and now it becomes a story of this sudden, dramatic rise to power, which perfectly mirrors the resurrection and ascension.
And here's a small detail that is absolutely critical to the whole allegory: the time. 2 full years pass. Joseph is just waiting in prison. Why is that so important? Because it means when he's finally released, it happens in the 3rd year. Get it? It's a direct echo of the 3rd-day resurrection. And it's at that moment that he's called up from the dungeon to stand before the most powerful man in the world, Pharaoh.
And the way Joseph rises to power is laid out as a direct parallel to the son's exaltation. Think about it. First, he's called out of the prison of death. Then he delivers this incredible divine wisdom. And what's the reward? He's given Pharaoh's own signet ring, the very symbol of his power, and bam, he's appointed ruler over all of Egypt.
Now, this is fascinating. In a lot of biblical interpretations, Pharaoh is kind of the bad guy, right? A symbol for Satan. But this text does a complete 180. Here, in this part of the story, Pharaoh actually represents God the Father. And he's the one who lifts up Joseph, who represents God the Son, and gives him his own name and his own authority. Joseph is basically going to rule as Pharaoh's right-hand man. And the text doesn't just imply this connection, it spells it out. It links Joseph becoming the ruler of all Egypt, second in command only to Pharaoh himself, directly to that famous line from the resurrected Christ in Matthew. Joseph's inheritance of Egypt is basically a preview, a foreshadowing, of the son's ultimate inheritance of all of space-time. Which brings us to the final section, the redemption of space-time. So what was the point of all this? According to the source text, why did this entire cosmic drama have to unfold this way? What's the grand purpose behind this incredible descent into suffering and then the amazing rise to power? Well, according to this text, the endgame is nothing less than total, absolute victory. We're talking about a process where death itself is defeated. Sin isn't just pardoned, its very power is shattered. And get this, the very possibility of future sin is just erased from the fabric of reality. The end result is a space-time that is completely and forever redeemed. But here's the thing. The source says this wasn't just some cosmic power play. It digs into the why. Why was the sacrifice even necessary? And the answer isn't just about balancing the books or some kind of legal transaction. It was the ultimate proof of God's love and justice. It was a demonstration designed to win the hearts of every created being. We're talking angels and humans. So that from that point on, obedience would come from a place of real love and devotion, not just because you're supposed to. And that's where we'll leave it for this explainer. It's pretty incredible, right? To see how this one theological perspective takes the story of Joseph and sees it not just as ancient history, but as this deep, complex allegory for the redemption of the entire cosmos. And it really leaves you with a final thought. If a story as familiar as this one can contain a hidden framework of this magnitude, what other hidden layers, what other cosmic blueprints might be waiting for us in the stories we thought we already knew?